To repay my uncle and aunt for raising me, I married Brandon Walker, the autistic heir of the Walker family. For 7 years, he treated me with cold indifference. I tried everything to connect with him, but he never let me in. To outsiders, marrying into the Walker family was like winning the lottery, but I was just an orphan. When I was 6, my parents died. My Uncle Edward fought over the inheritance and planned to send me to an orphanage. Unfortunately for him, my inheritance was in a trust, so he couldn't access it. Desperate, I called my mother's estranged brother, Uncle Andrew. He hung up, and the next morning he showed up at my door. He took me in. His wife Samantha wasn't pleased. She told him, "You brought her home, you deal with her." And so I learned to be invisible. I raised myself, helped with my cousin Eliza, and never complained. Eliza, just 2 months younger than me, was treated like a princess. I, on the other hand, was treated well, but I always felt out of place. Years later, Uncle Andrew wanted to send Eliza and me to study in England, but the Walkers came with a marriage proposal, one based on an old promise between grandfathers. Eliza refused, begging not to be forced into it. That night I heard Samantha say, "Let Priscilla marry him. We've raised her for years, it can't be for nothing." So I volunteered. Brandon was distant from the start. On our wedding night, he told me to leave the room. He destroyed the wedding decorations and avoided all contact. Mrs. Walker insisted he wasn't a bad person, just withdrawn. She urged me to be patient. So I tried. I cooked for him, took care of his medical needs, and learned everything I could about autism. Slowly, he stopped rejecting me. He even made fruit platters for me when I was sick. But Mrs. Walker wasn't satisfied. She wanted a child. When I explained Brandon wouldn't even let me sleep beside him, she took him for an evaluation. The doctor said he was physically fine, but emotionally blocked. "Then it's your fault," she told me. "Make him love you." By our 7th year, she gave me an ultimatum. Have a child or leave. That night I put on a gown she'd picked and tried to seduce him. He didn't even look at me. When I touched him, he pushed me away and screamed, "You're disgusting! Don't ever appear before me again." His words shattered me. I returned to Uncle Andrew's house to recover. He asked if I had been mistreated. I denied it and smiled. Eliza had become a successful fashion designer. One day she said, "If you're not happy, leave. Dad has worked hard to make us independent from the Walkers. Plus you have your inheritance now, so it's not like you need their money." Her words shook me. Could I really choose my own life? 3 days later, Mrs. Walker called. Brandon wouldn't eat anyone else's cooking. I returned, but he was never home, going out early and coming back late. That wasn't like him. I made his favorite soup and waited, but fell asleep. I woke to him staring at me blankly. "Where have you been?" I asked. "You've been gone every day. How would you know I wasn't here?" He looked at me and said, "Priscilla, do you know what I hate most about you?" I didn't respond. I just stared at him, stared in his eyes. "I hate that you allowed them to make you into a puppet." After years of enduring humiliation, coldness, and emotional starvation in a marriage, I stood once more in the quiet kitchen of the Walker mansion. My hands trembled slightly as I stirred Brandon's favorite minstrel soup. I memorized the recipe, not because he ever asked, but because on rare occasions when he acknowledged it, a flicker of comfort crossed his otherwise stoic face. That flicker had been enough to keep her going through the barren winters of their relationship, but tonight felt different. As the soup simmered softly behind me, I stared into the darkened garden. Haunted by 7 years of a one-sided companionship, I recalled the whispered affirmations to myself, the hope that my warmth would thaw the frozen walls Brandon had built around his soul, but it had never been enough. My kindness, met only with silence. My care, mistaken for manipulation. Even moments of vulnerability were met with disgust. Once I was literally shoved from his room like an intruder, and yet this morning, when I opened my eyes and felt only an emptiness where hope used to be, I realized I needed closure. Not for Brandon, not for the Walker family, but for myself. There had been nights I cried silently on the cold side of the bed, while Brandon painted behind closed doors. Mornings when I buried my pain just to keep his routine undisturbed. Moments when I longed to scream, to ask why my devotion had been treated like a burden, when all I ever wanted was to be seen as more than a convenient arrangement. But I never screamed, never demanded until now. When the front door finally creaked open and hesitant footsteps echoed down the hallway, I didn't greet him with my usual polite smile. I didn't offer small talk. I sat still with a finality that felt symbolic. Brandon entered, cloaked in his usual silence, but for the first time, he didn't immediately look away. He looked at me, truly looked, and for a fleeting second something flickered in his eyes. Uncertainty, maybe curiosity. His face remained neutral, but something was different. When I rose, my voice didn't tremble like before. "Do you know what I hate most about all of this?" I asked. Brandon blinked. Caught off guard, his lips parted, then closed. I continued. "It's not your coldness, not even your rejection. It's that I stayed through all of it, hoping one day you'd finally see me, and you still don't. I didn't realize my hands had curled into fists until my nails dug into my palms." Brandon said nothing, but this time his silence felt heavy, like he was holding something back. I walked past him, not in anger, but with clarity. I had nothing left to say that hadn't already been ignored. As I passed the hallway lined with his paintings, many with faces that vaguely resemble me, I paused at one he'd finished last spring. A soft portrait of a woman curled beneath a tree staring up at the sky. 7 years, I whispered to myself. 7 years waiting for a look that meant something. When I reached the bedroom door I was once forbidden to enter, I stepped inside. Not to rekindle anything, but to face the space where so much of my heartbreak had taken root. Brandon followed quietly, his presence, no longer a comfort, just an echo in the stillness. I turned to him, my eyes were no longer desperate. They were resolved. "I'm leaving, Brandon, not out of anger, not even resentment, but because I need to remember who I am when I'm not begging to be loved." For the first time, his expression cracked. His fingers trembled on the doorframe. But still he said nothing. That told her everything. I picked up the suitcase I had packed that morning. I passed him again, this time not waiting for him to look back. I walked to the front door. When Brandon spoke, his voice a low whisper just enough to stop her. "Do you know what I hate most about myself?" I turned, startled not by the question but by the fact that after all these years he was finally speaking from the heart. What he said next, I never expected. That night as I lay in bed pretending to be asleep, I heard Brandon's footsteps approach slowly and hesitant. I kept my eyes closed, my breath steady, but my heart pounded like a warning bell. I didn't know if it was fear, hope, or just 7 years of heartbreak. He stood there for a while. Just stood. I could feel his gaze in the darkness. An accusation or a plea, I couldn't tell. Then he left, leaving behind only silence and the faint scent of turpentine. The smell he always carried after painting the next morning. I acted normal, made breakfast, watered the plants, and waited. Brandon didn't come downstairs. The housekeeper said he hadn't left his room. That wasn't like him. So I brought him a bowl of minstrel soup and knocked gently. "Brandon, I brought breakfast," I said. After a long pause, the door cracked open. He looked disheveled, tired. Paint smeared across his fingers like war paint. Instead of speaking, he reached out and took the bowl. His eyes flickered with regret and curiosity. "Thank you," he murmured. It was so soft I almost thought I imagined it, but I didn't. I couldn't have. For the first time in years, his voice had warmth. Still, I knew better than to hope. I turned to leave, but his hand brushed mine just for a moment, and I froze. My heart clenched, as if that tiny touch could rewrite everything. But he pulled back quickly, mumbling something about the soup getting cold, and shut the door before I could make sense of anything. That night I couldn't sleep, tossing and turning, wondering if maybe, just maybe, something had changed, or if I was just falling back into old illusions. Over the next few days, he was different. quieter, more watchful, almost careful. He still didn't let me into his room or into his world, but he didn't yell at me either. He didn't push me away when I spoke, and when I left his meals outside his door, they were always eaten. The bowls returned neatly to the tray. A small gesture of truce. Even Mrs. Walker noticed. She cornered me in the hallway, her voice sharp and impatient. "What did you do?" she demanded, eyes narrowed. "Nothing," I replied honestly. I hadn't done anything except cry and try to move on, but clearly something was shifting, and that made her suspicious. She thrived on control, and Brandon's softening, even slightly, meant she might be losing it. She reminded me again about the family line, the child I was expected to produce, the legacy I supposedly owed them, the Walker name and wealth. This time I didn't flinch. I just listened, nodded, and went back to reading my books on autism and trauma recovery, trying to understand the pieces of the man I had married, because deep down I still hadn't given up on him. Not entirely, not yet. One evening while cleaning the attic, I stumbled across an old canvas tucked beneath a dusty cloth. When I unwrapped it, my breath caught in my throat. It was a portrait of a girl standing in the garden, her eyes bright, her hair caught in the wind. The brush strokes were soft and slightly abstract, but I knew it was me. Brandon's signature marked the corner, dated only a few months after our wedding. I stared at it for a long time, trying to reconcile this forgotten tenderness with the years of coldness and rejection, wondering how it could exist, what it meant, and whether it had ever been meant for me to find. I brought it downstairs and hung it in the hallway. I said nothing, just left it there for him to see, to notice, maybe to remember. The next morning it was gone. In its place, a blank space on the wall and a flower on my nightstand. Lily of the Valley, my mother's favorite. No note, just that single stem flower. I mentioned it once years ago in passing. It was enough to make me cry, but not enough to make me believe. Not yet, not fully. Because Brandon was still a puzzle with missing pieces, and every time I thought I found one, another seemed to disappear. Then the rumors started. People whispered that Brandon had been seen at an art gallery downtown, talking with a young woman, laughing and smiling. Part of me didn't want to believe it, but another part of me knew. Change doesn't happen in a vacuum, and whatever was stirring in him hadn't come for me. When I confronted him, he looked startled, almost ashamed, but not guilty. "Have you been seeing someone else?" I asked. He paused too long before saying, "No." That silence told me everything. I didn't cry, not this time. I just nodded and left the room, but something inside me broke permanently. I packed a small bag, not to leave forever, but just to breathe, to find space. I left a note. "Brandon, I need time. I need to remember who I am outside of this house, outside of your shadow. I'm not leaving you. I'm just trying to find myself again. Please don't look for me." I got in the car and drove with no particular destination. City lights blurred past the windshield. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew this. I couldn't keep losing myself in a love that refused to see me. Then suddenly I was back, standing frozen in the doorway, heart pounding. Brandon's voice hung in the air. "Do you know what I hate most about you?" The walls of the Walker mansion closed in around me, suffocating me in a silence so sharp it echoed. His eyes, dark and unreadable, held no warmth. They were cold, reflecting all the pain I'd buried. I stood up slowly. The blanket slipped off my lap, the chicken marinara on the table now cold and untouched. "What?" I asked, my voice trembling. Brandon stepped closer. Then another step. Now just inches from me. "I hate how patient you are. I hate how kind you try to be. I hate how you keep pretending you belong here when you don't." Each word cut deep. His words hit me like a blow to the chest. I blinked, too stunned to speak. But he wasn't done. "I don't need you. I never needed you. You were just a replacement bride forced into this house. Like a shadow you walk around pretending to be my wife, but you're nothing." The weight of his words crashed over me. I struggled to breathe. Why are you telling me this now? I asked, my voice cracking despite my effort to stay calm. Why are you saying all this? Brandon looked at me like I was a stranger who had invaded his carefully constructed world. Because you tried to trap me, he spat. All your sweet words, your cooking, your little gestures, it was all manipulation. You wanted me to fall in love with you, but I won't, I can't. My hands trembled, but I refused to cry. Not in front of him. You think I stayed to trap you? I whispered, hurt, giving way to anger. I gave up my education, my dreams, my youth for you. I wiped your blood when you cut yourself. I shielded you from public humiliation. I fought your nightmares and your silence. While all this time you thought I had an agenda. Brandon sneered. You think you're noble, that your sacrifices give you the right to stay here, to demand love from someone incapable of giving it. That's when I snapped. Maybe I was foolish, I said, stepping back. Foolish to think I could be loved. Foolish to believe that years of loyalty would ever mean anything, but I'm not a fool anymore. He didn't reply. Just stood there, fists clenched, breathing hard. I reached beneath the coffee table, pulled out the documents I had hidden there months ago. The divorce agreement I never had the courage to submit. Here, I said, pressing it to his chest. You don't want me here, fine. I'll leave. No more pretending, no more patience, no more Priscilla Turner, the idiot. Brandon didn't take the paper. He looked at it like it was poison. You've wanted me gone for years, I said, blinking back the final tears. Now I'm granting you your wish. I turned to walk away, but his voice stopped me. You never asked what I hate most about myself. I froze, not turning around, but listening. I hate that I can't stop thinking about you, he said. I hate that your absence makes this house feel like a graveyard. I hate that the only time I feel safe is when you're near. I slowly turned around, stunned. What? Then why? I whispered. Why hurt me like this? Brandon's expression showed raw emotion for the first time. Because I don't know how to love you the way you deserve, he said. And if I try and fail, it'll destroy you. I can't do that to you. My heart ached, grief and hope clashing inside me. You already have, I said. You already destroyed me. And with that, I walked past him and headed upstairs to pack. I didn't look back. I heard the soft rustle of papers and the quiet thud of a man collapsing to his knees. The sound of someone crying. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face filled with disdain, confusion, and his brief vulnerability. I stayed up, folding memories into a suitcase. By dawn, the Walker mansion was still and quiet. No housekeepers, no voices, no phone calls, just silence. I left the signed divorce papers on the dining room table and slipped out through the side door. I stepped outside. A formidable figure blocked my path. Mrs. Walker, her arms folded across her chest, face cold as ever. Running away like a coward? She sneered. I didn't rise to the bait. I'm leaving with dignity, not cowardice. I can no longer endure this madness. She scoffed. Dignity after humiliating this family. After failing to give us an heir. You want to call that dignity? I stayed, I said, trembling, while your son called me disgusting. While he couldn't bear to be near me. While you reminded me month after month that my womb was a disappointment. I stayed not because I was weak, but because I believed in loyalty. Her face twisted, but before she could respond, Brandon's voice echoed by the doorway. Let her go. We both turned. He stood in the doorway, shirt untucked, eyes bloodshot, face pale but jaw set. Don't interfere, Mother. If she wants to leave, don't stop her. My heart clenched. Even now he was still pushing me away. Maybe it was better that way. Maybe we were too broken to fix. I walked past Mrs. Walker, my suitcase trailing behind me. I didn't look back, not even when I reached the gates. I found refuge at Uncle Andrew's house again. He greeted me with a quiet nod and a plate of sliced apples. The only love language he knew for comfort was food. Eliza arrived later, carrying shopping bags. "You're not going to live like a ghost anymore," she declared, brushing my hair as I sat on the bed. "This is your life, Priscilla. Start living it." "I don't even know who I am without the walkers," I admitted. "Then it's time to find out," she said. Months passed. I started freelancing again, taking art commissions under a pseudonym. Painting had always been my refuge, long before it became a bridge to Brandon's world. I rented a small studio near the park and began teaching art classes to children. For the first time in years, I felt peace, real peace. One afternoon, as I helped the child blend watercolors, a bouquet of lilies arrived. No note, just my name in his bold, precise handwriting. I threw them away. The next day, Brandon showed up. He stood awkwardly in the doorway holding a canvas. The children gasped at the tall man, dressed in all black. He looked at me. "I brought you something," he said. I didn't move from where I was standing. "Why are you here?" "To return something I stole," he replied. Quietly, he turned the canvas around. It was a painting of mine, one I had thrown out during our marriage, a painting of us at the beach during a rare, quiet summer night. "I thought it was gone. You kept it?" I asked, stunned. He nodded. "I didn't understand it then, but I do now," Brandon said. He started to say, but stopped. He looked so lost. "I don't expect forgiveness. I limited my interaction with my mother. I've started therapy, real therapy. I'm trying to understand what's broken in me." I swallowed hard. "You're not broken." "I was. I hurt you." "Yes," I said softly. "You did. You—" Silence stretched between us. He held out the painting. "This belongs to you." I took it. Our fingers brushed. "Goodbye, Brandon." I turned back to my students, but as he lingered in the doorway, I added without turning around, "If you ever learn how to love, come find me again." He left. I don't know if he'll return, but for now, I'm no longer a placeholder in someone else's story. I am Priscilla Turner, and I'm finally beginning to paint my own life.